Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Awesome. So welcome to Turn the Page podcast, Syosset Public Library's podcast. And I am one of your hosts for today, Stacy Mencher, Reader Services Librarian, and I'm joined with...
This is Evelyn Hershkowitz, also Reader Services Librarian, and our special guest today is...
I'm Ariel Lawhon, author of Name Helene.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, welcome to
I
the
am
podcast.
loving your book. It is so good. It is so in-depth. There is so much research you must have had to do for this book. My God. So why don't you tell us all about the research and how you picked up this topic and where you even heard about Nancy Wake, because she's really not well known at all.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'd never heard of her myself. And I was sitting in a hotel room in Buffalo, New York. I was on tour for my second book, and I got an email from the mother of an old friend of mine. Her name is Sally Burgess, and she's been bossing me around for years, so it was completely normal for her to say, Ariel, I don't know if you've ever heard of this woman. We love her down under. She's a national hero. She would make a great subject for your next book, and if you don't write about her next, we can no longer be friends. So you can ask my real mother that I'm not hugely partial to being told what to do. So I actually didn't take her advice. I wrote my last book next. I Was Anastasia, partly because it was already under contract and due, but also just because I could. However, I loved Nancy Wake from the moment I first read about her. And I knew that as soon as I finished Anastasia that I would turn to her as my next subject. And I did. And it thrust me right in the middle of a moment in history I didn't know much about. I mean, I know about World War II. I did not know much about the French resistance and their challenges within World War II. So I started reading. And thankfully, there were 3 biographies written about Nancy, and Nancy wrote her own. So I was able to piece the story together from interviews that people had done with her and from her own words, from her own stories, her own one-liners, her own remembrances of that time in her life and in the war. And it was fascinating. I was absolutely transfixed by her experiences and the things that she did. And this was war, so there were these horrible things happening all around her. And if you read the novel, there are some really harrowing things that she witnesses, and they all really happened. I took them all from the historical record, and in several cases, they were really, really hard to write, but they were true. So on one hand, there's this story that has these teeth, and it's really hard and difficult. And on the other hand, there's Nancy herself, and she's hilarious. She was so funny. And one of the things that I loved about her story most is how it marries those two things. There's a lot of depth and a lot of teeth to the story, but there's also a lot of humor because she was funny. And somehow those moments of levity kind of help bridge the harder parts in the book.
Also a love story.
Yes. She fell in love shortly before the outbreak of the war with a man named Henri Fiacca. And no sooner had they gotten married than the Germans invaded France. And what transpired after that was the kind of love story, one in which a man stayed home to hold down the fort and the woman went off to war. Modern look at marriage that happened right in the middle of the 1940s. And it was, I don't know, this fantastic, mutually respectful, equitable relationship. And I loved it. I loved their relationship. And I love how there's this really deep love story as the bedrock to this novel.
So
I'm
this is your
excited.
fourth book?
Fourth novel. I'm working
And
on
they're all,
number
you write historical fiction. They've all been historical fiction.
I've
didn't hear
read
that.
2 of
They
your.
have. They've all been based on either, oh, good. Thank you. So they're all either based on real
I didn't
people
know
or real.
you had I'm trying to find the name of the one that I didn't read because I read I Was Anastasia and I read The Wife, the Maiden Mistress, and
Flight of Dreams,
yes,
Yes,
that
A Flight
one.
of Dreams.
about the Hindenburg.
So now I have to read that one and read.
I
this
have to
one.
read that one too.
I
after
just
read
got,
finish Codename Helene.
No, I have to just start Codename Helene because I just got it available on Overdrive, our ebook, because I was on hold for it, and I was like, I hope I can read it before the interview. But I'm really excited because I like historical fiction and I love your writing.
Good. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, your writing is great. This book caught me right from the first page. It's great. It's really great. I mean, things are, I'm sure for you too, things are a little more difficult to concentrate right now. So I'm not flying through books like I used to. What about you? How has this pandemic affected you, especially the fact that your book came out March 31st?
Oh man, it was the strangest book release I've ever had. I'm not gonna lie. My kids went to school on March 5th and never went back.
Oh, wow.
So where are you located? Because that was even earlier than us.
Here in New York. Actually, I didn't even go back to work now that I think about it. I was supposed to be coming back to work from my maternity leave, and then they were like, nope, we're closed, lockdown. I was like, oh, okay.
Where are you coming from, Ariel? Where are you located?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, my mom loves it there.
It's a nice place to be.
It is. It's very pretty. It's a good place to raise a family.
Yeah,
So now that all of your in-house things were canceled, you've been doing a lot of these on Zoom?
I have the entire month of April. I feel like I lived on Zoom. I was a professional Zoomer.
But that's really cool. Like, did you get to interact with like a lot of readers to do the virtual Zoom more than you thought you would? Like a lot more people are like, oh, we get to meet her.
That I think is the one good thing about this format is you get to interact with people that you wouldn't see otherwise. Because typically, I think I was going to go to 10 or 11 cities, and I would have only gotten to talk to the people that were in that room with me. Where something like this, we've had people. I did one. There were people from all over the world, from England and Australia.
Oh, wow.
And them, and that's really fun. But I mean, as I'm sure in a room with people and have those really deep, fine, it's what we have to do during this time.
And did you, like, since you're done with this book, are you working on another one right now?
I am. I have started book number 5. So I'm at the beginning, lots of research and lots of planning and plotting and just starting to write. So it always feels a little bit like I'm standing at the bottom of Mount Everest going, oh, how will I get this one done? But that's just part of the process.
What's your easiest, most difficult parts of your job as a writer?
I think the writing is the hardest part.
Okay.
The taking anything and turning it into something is always so hard. The easiest parts, or the part that I enjoy the most, is the research. I have this theory that everyone has gaps in their education. Nobody gets through having learned everything. So being a historical novelist has allowed me to fill in those gaps in my own education. Every book has brought me to a moment in history that I'm not very familiar with, and I get to teach myself all about it. And for a very short time, I get to become an expert on that subject, learn as much as I can, and then I move on to the next thing.
Did you travel to any of the places in Codename Helene when you wrote the book?
Oh, I wish I could have, but my husband and I have 4 boys, so we are very much in active parenting mode. We had all 4 of them in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And they're little. That's what I say every day. Wow, how did that happen? I hope one day I'll be able to travel, but until then, I have had to rely on biographies and history, and Google Maps helps quite a bit too.
It seems like you were there, especially like as it happened. You do such a good job describing.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's my job. I have to make you feel like you're there. That's the part that nobody ever really sees, the part that gets built and layered in over months and months and months of revisions and edits. And I'm assuming other writers are like this. Something I can feel whether it feels real or not, and I keep working on it until I feel like a reader is experiencing that moment.
How long does it take you to write a book usually?
Depends on the book. This one, Helene, was a year.
I
Very
got it too.
fast, which is amazing because
This took you only a year to write?
it did, and it's
Oh my
technically
goodness.
2 full-size novels.
Oh, wow.
It's
This is a
at
very,
160,000 words. That
there's
one,
no space at all. Some books, this is very, very dense. It's really amazing. That took you a year?
See,
Wow.
when I'm next in the library,
Very
I'm gonna
impressed.
look at the book because I just have it on my phone.
It's
oh, yeah,
it's a nice size book. You had a lot to tell about it.
lots to tell. The others that took about a year and a half. My first one took a little closer to 2 years. I think when you're just starting out, there's a level of uncertainty as a writer that you battle. And the longer I do this, the more efficient I am. I can't say I'm necessarily faster, but my confidence in myself grows. I know that at the end of the day, I can write the story. So that part changes. The writing never gets easier. But the other thing is I have a deadline. There's a solid date. I must turn it in. So I have to do it. I once heard that books are never done. They're only due. So
Oh, okay. What did you do before you were a writer, and how did that influence your writing?
Oh gosh. Career-wise, I worked for a software development company. It was a terrible fit. I hated every second of it. And then I quit that when I started having babies. We had so many babies so quickly that I stayed home with them. And I cannot say it gave me more time to write, because anybody who's had a baby knows that is not how that works. But it gave me motivation, I guess, to finally do the thing that I've been dreaming about. And I worked.
Which came first, the
during
baby or the book?
Baby weekend. My first book, my husband was working really to write during the week. So I would research and I would plot everything out. And then on Saturdays, he'd be home. He really missed the children. I did not. So I would leave on Saturday for 7 or 8 hours, and I'd go sit at a cafe and do all of my writing for the week on Saturday afternoons. And that first book was written almost entirely on Saturdays.
Wow.
They got a little bit older, and then they went to school. Now I write during school hours when they're gone. I kind of write from bus to bus. When the last bus leaves till the first bus gets home, I'm at my desk.
And what are you doing now? How are you going about writing? The kids must be home, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's bedlam. It's absolute pandemonium, chaos all the time. I have noise canceling headphones. I've got an office in our house. It has 2 doorways, but there are no doors on them. So my husband finally went and bought curtains to hang in there, sort of as a visual deterrent to the children to let me be. So these days I'm doing what I did when they were little. I write when I can, as much as I can. We just make it work.
And what about the title of the book? I read somewhere that wasn't really the one you wanted.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think how that story went. The working title was The White Mouse. That's the nickname Nancy had during the war. And I didn't realize when I was calling it The White Mouse that that's sort of a gross name for a feminine hygiene product that plumbers call it.
Oh.
Like, we cannot title that the book. That cannot be the title of the book. So once that one got kicked out, I need something. It's kind of like having a 5-year-old that doesn't have a name. I had to title it something. So I was calling it The French Spy. And then that one got kicked out the door because Nancy technically wasn't French. So we settled on
She's Australian.
Yeah, she's Australian. I think she considered herself French, so it made sense to me. But
the almost French Spy. And the cover is great. I love the cover.
It's my favorite cover of all my books so far.
Oh, wow.
I love
it. Really pretty.
It's very eye-catching because if you see it like on the library shelf or anything, or even if you see it on the digital shelf. Like, just like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah, it's a great look. Great cover. Do you do any of your own audiobooks? Because you do have a great voice.
Oh, thank you.
Oh.
The only thing I've ever done is for I Was Anastasia, audio-wise, is the author's note. That's on the audiobook, but I've not done anything else.
Would you want to narrate one of your audiobooks, or you're okay having someone else?
It depends, I suppose, on the characters. I have been told I have a little bit of a Southern accent. I don't hear it, but other people do. So I don't know how well that would translate. It would depend on the book. I would love to try, although I did learn when I read the author's note that it's very, very difficult work, and it's very precise, and the microphone picks up.
We've interviewed people in the past that have done voice actor work and have been narrators for audiobooks, and the voice actor said they would never want to narrate an audiobook because it's so precise, as you were saying, that they're like, you can't even breathe, it'll pick it up.
Yeah. You can't breathe, you can't turn the page. The producer kept telling me, she's like, well, I don't know how you can fix this, Ariel, but you have a very lippy voice. Apparently my lips smack together a lot. I don't know how that works or why the microphone got it, but I don't know if I'd be a good fit for it after all. I can't fix my lips. They're just there.
Right. Okay, so just stick to your writing, which is wonderful. All this historical fiction is wonderful. We're really, really happy to read all of your books and recommend them, which is what we do so well.
Yeah.
We love recommending your books.
That means a lot.
So you did say you're working on something, but you haven't given us any clues as to what it's about.
Are you allowed to?
I am allowed to, if you'd like to know. So at the moment, the working title, and as we know, that can change, but the working title is The Frozen River, and it is based on the life of a woman named Martha Ballard. She was a midwife in the late 1700s in Maine. Most people have never heard of her, but she was absolutely fascinating. This woman was the aunt of Clara Barton, founder of the American Red Cross, and she was the grandmother of the first female physician in the United States. But what makes her story so fascinating is at a time when most women could neither read nor write, Martha Ballard kept a diary for 30 years. And in that diary is recorded every birth, every death, every scandal, every tragedy that happened in her small village.
Wow.
Also recorded in is the only written record of a rape trial that changed the legal system in our country.
That sounds fascinating.
So she is, I know, I've been waiting 10 years. I've been holding on to this idea for 10 years, and I finally.
How did you find out about this?
Okay, so have you ever gone to the doctor's office? I don't know if they do this in your part of the country, but where I'm from, they'll go to the doctor's office and there'll be these little, like, just little books. They're called Our Daily Bread. They're just these little compilations, these little almost devotionals in the doctor's office. And I was flipping through one day while I was waiting for one of my kids to see the pediatrician, and there was a little write-up about Martha Ballard. And I remember sitting there looking at that thinking, that is fascinating. So I ripped the page out. I don't know if I was supposed to, but I did. Ripped the page out, took it home, and I still have it.
Oh, wow.
That's great. That sounds fascinating.
That's really
What's
cool.
the Frozen River? Can you give that away, or?
No, every year. So it's set along the Kennebec River in Maine. And every year in late November, the river freezes solid. It turns into a giant block of Maine and Boston. And at this point in time, obviously, there were not roads, there were not interstates. The people of that town could no longer travel once the river froze. So the book begins with a body being found in the frozen river. That's the opening of the book. And then the rest of it is who this person is and how she died and
So it's a mystery. Do you think it's going to be a historical mystery?
Yes.
Would you consider it a historical mystery, huh?
Yes.
Is that such
Very
a genre?
similar.
Yeah.
Well, it is now, if not.
Yeah. Sounds great. We look forward to reading that
Yeah,
one too.
I already know like 3 people I can recommend it to.
Oh, yay.
But I just wanted to thank you so much for talking with us and about your books and your writing, Ariel. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This has been really fun.
Thank you. And when the next one comes out, when is that? When's your due date for that one?
Roughly August of 2022 is when it should be published.
Okay.
So a
We
little
got
over.
plenty of
I'd
time,
love to
but we'd
talk
love
to
to
you
talk to
again about it.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So we're going to close this chapter on Turn the Page. Once again, this is Stacy.
And this is Evelyn. And our special guest is?
Ariel Lawhon.
Thank you so much, Ariel. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ariel.
Thank you for having me.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.